Hello, and thank you for taking the time to visit the Cook County Assessor's website to watch a brief presentation on your 2022 valuation and classification notices. My first slide here is representative of your 2022 taxes payable, the property tax statement that you received either in late March or early April. The taxes payable for 2022 are based off the valuation on January 2nd, 2021. The next slide here is representative of the valuation notice that you may have recently received, which is showing the valuation as of January 2nd, 2022 for taxes payable in 2023. The valuation that we establish on January 2nd, 2022 is based off of a sales study period from October of 2020 through September of 2021. You then receive a valuation notice, and you are offered opportunity to appeal or review that valuation and classification information. And you can reach out to the assessor's office if you have any questions, or you feel like the information is incorrect and you want us to review some information. If you and the assessor cannot agree to the property's valuation or use classification, you are offered an opportunity to appeal to your local boards if you are in the townships of Lutz, Tofte, and Schroeder, or to the county board if you are outside or in an unorganized township. My next slide here is just an example of the type of activity we've seen in the market from the last study period. Most of us will understand that there's been significant activity in the real estate market here in Cook County, that the inventory of available homes and cabins has steadily declined over the last 3 years. And we actually saw roughly an 84% increase in the number of sales over our 2022 study period. In 2020, we had 325 sales. And in the 2021 study period, we had 597 sales. This is roughly an 84% increase. In addition to the number of sales increasing, our median and average price of a home and cabin has also increased. The median price of a cabin in Cook County has nearly doubled. That number was $168,000 in 2020 and $334,000 in the 21 study. The average price of a home and cabin is up about 43.5%. This is reflecting $273,000 in 2020 and $392,000 in 2021. Our sales ratio of improved properties was near 75% throughout Cook County in our most recent study. This means that the property was assessed around 75% of the actual sale prices that were occurring in the market. So our assessment is analyzed based on the actual sale prices. In this example, a property that was valued at $95,000 on January 2021, then sold in March of 21 for $100,000. This would reflect a 95% sales ratio based on the sale price and the assessed value. The Department of Revenue sets the acceptable range for the assessment level, which is 90 to 105%. Now, in an increasing market, the direct ratio, just comparing the sale price to the assessed value, is not reflective of increasing market trends. Many of these sales occur at different times of the year, and we are establishing the value on all properties as of January 2nd, 2022 in this case. So upon reviewing our county assessment, the Department of Revenue applies a time trend to the sale prices in order to reflect those increases in the market over the course of that study period. There are examples where a property is sold twice in the study period, and when the second sale was higher than the first sale, that is reflective of the percentage of increase in our market. The sales that have not sold twice are also subjected to the same increasing market trends, and the sales throughout the study period are adjusted to reflect a fixed date of January 2nd, 2022. This is a sheet from the Minnesota Department of Revenue's Property Tax Administrator's Manual showing that which property types we are applying a time trend to, and which property types we are only looking at a direct ratio, the sale price compared to the assessed value. In property type 91, this is going to represent the residential homes and the non-commercial seasonal recreational cabins. So most property types fall into this category. This is a second page of the same chart, and you can see here the bottom categories are properties that are not used in the sales study. However, those ratios are still reviewed and adjusted based on the sales that are occurring. So in this example, we've compiled an example of a number of sales occurring in any given township, city, or countywide. In this example, our median ratio is at 84%. This would not be acceptable under the Department of Revenue's guidelines, which is 90 to 105%. Property types are grouped based off of the chart I showed in the previous slide, where properties like residential and seasonal recreational cabins are grouped together. They're further divided into segments of lakeshore and non-lakeshore property. So, for example, in Lutzen Township, all of the homes and cabins combined must have a median or a median ratio of 90 to 105%. Now, further segmenting those into on and off water, each of those categories also must have a median ratio of 90 to 105%. This is done to ensure that there is equity across different property types and that the assessment is uniform. So in this example, this is reflective of the time trends that I described earlier. Based on the concept that market conditions are usually increasing or changing over time, in this example, we are applying a 1% per month appreciating value. So as of June 1st, a sale at $100,000 would be adjusted at 1% per month up to the January 2nd, 2022 assessment date, resulting in a sale price that would be measured against the assessed value of $107,000. Most people who have recently purchased a property feel that the price they paid is what the property is worth. So in this example, if you were to compare the assessed value to the actual sale price, you would have a 100% ratio. It would reflect that your assessment is near the actual sale price, the direct ratio. However, when you adjust this property sale for time, the ratio is actually 93.5%. That is the $100,000 assessed value compared to the adjusted sale price of $107,000. So how are those time trends determined? We use a separate 21-month study period leading up to the January 2nd, 2022 assessment. That sales study period ends in September of 2021. So in this example, the DOR sales ratio criteria specifies the process. In the hypothetical where the market was appreciating at 1%, what was an 84% direct median ratio is now a 79% time adjusted ratio. This is an important step. Otherwise, again, we are comparing assessment values as of a fixed date, which is January 2nd, to the sale prices of various dates throughout the study period from September of 2020 through October of 2021. So you can see here how this same set of sales is then adjusted by a monthly basis at a rate of 1%, resulting in a change in the ratio. The median ratio here is now reduced based on an increasing market trend. So what forces are affecting these market values? Well, our supply of homes and cabins and even vacant land is low. And historically, we have had low interest rates. I know they are increasing as of lately. So this next slide, this is an example of the entire county, Cook County, for the various property types that the Department of Revenue analyzes and the Cook County Assessor's Office analyzes. You can see here, I've highlighted some important categories where the number of sales are quite significant. 122 sales in residential, and our median ratio, which is adjusted for time, is at 73.5%. Again, in the cabin seasonal recreational category, we're at about 67.9% on 80 sales. These two property types are then combined down here in the 91 category, combined residential and seasonal rec. That would be reflective of an overall 72% median ratio on 201 sales. I've also highlighted the rural vacant land classification. We had a median ratio of 81.7% on 68 sales going in. And then down here, the combined all property classes were at 76% on 449 sales used in the study. The reason that number of sales is lower than the 500 and some sales that I represented earlier is because a number of sales are then thrown out of the study. For example, if a relative sold a property to a relative of theirs, that sale is not considered an arm's length transaction, and that sale would be rejected from this sales study. This next slide is after making our adjustments to assessed values. These numbers were pulled as of April 8th, 2022. You can see these same categories, residential and seasonal recreational cabins, are now within the acceptable range. The same number of properties, and the median ratios for these various property types are within the acceptable range. Now, I want to point out, for example, the category 52 short-term rentals. These properties do not fall into the sales study currently. This property category was created just in the last 2 years. And the reason why this ratio seems awfully high is because that ratio is not adjusted for time. So, for example, if you were to apply our 20% roughly time trend to this, the actual ratio would be closer to 90% on those properties. So after making all of our adjustments in the assessment, we've now ended up acceptable in all categories and in all townships and unorganized townships, where each of these property types are now meeting that median ratio of 90 to 105% of the actual sale price. Now I'm going to get into an example of how increases of say 20 to 30% of your property value might affect your property tax bill in 2023. Now, I want to warn you that this is a general concept. There are a lot of things that affect property taxes, and this is just a real basic overview of how increases in property values may or may not affect your property tax bill. There's a common misconception that when the assessor increases a property's value, that the county actually collects more revenue, and that is not the case. So we'll get to the slide here. This is reflecting a hypothetical town of only 4 homes. If it required $4,000 to operate this town, you can see here that all of these properties are assessed exactly the same at $100,000, and each one of them then picks up 25% of the tax burden. So now what would happen if the budget was cut in half? If it only costed $2,000 to operate this township? Well, with no valuation change on any of these properties, they still pick up 25% of that levy, and resulting in a $500 tax bill. So how about if we were to double the values of these properties? Now, in this example, you can see our assessed value on each of these properties has increased to $200,000. The levy of $4,000 has not changed. Each of these properties is continuing to pick up 25% of that levy, and the taxes where the values are doubling have not changed. Now, let's say, for example, the values are cut in half. So in this example, EMV of $50,000 on each property still picks up 25% of that operating levy, and the tax bill does not change. So in the example of a property value going up or down, if they're consistent, the taxes don't typically change. So now how about in an example where this property is actually valued at 200,000. You can see here is representing a property that is on a lake shore. And the other three properties are valued at $100,000 and they are non-lake shore properties. You can see in this example that $4,000 budget is now not split evenly. This property is picking up 40% of the levy, while these three properties are picking up 20% each. So what if the market is changing at a different pace, which across the state of Minnesota, this is the case. This is representative in actual market sales and trends. Now, if the lakeshore property increased by 20% and the other three properties on off water increased by 7%, you can see here that there's a little bit of shifting. Even though this property value went up 7%, its taxes have been reduced from the prior year. This is assuming that the budget has remained consistent at $4,000. Now, what's happening here is that there's a shift. Basically, no additional revenue is being collected by the county. It's just shifting where those revenues are being collected. So you can see in this example, a property with a 7% increase actually has a 4.6% decrease in the tax bill. Now, again, that is where the levy is remaining consistent at that $4,000. So your property is assessed based on its use. So there's a classification that establishes the percentage that you pay of the levy in conjunction with your valuation. Now, those class rates are set by the legislature. They also determine who might be eligible for exemptions and exclusions. Say a homestead property, they get a property market value exclusion, which reduces the taxable market value. And they also determine the process and rules for assessment and taxation. So the first step in the process, the assessor establishes those values and classifications for each property type. And we look at that and we oftentimes refer to it as the portion of the pie that each taxpayer will have to pick up. The second step in the process is that the county, the city, and the schools, the hospitals set their levies and budgets, and they determine the price of this pie. The last step is that the auditor calculates these tax rates to ensure that based on the levies, that the budgets that are needed to be fulfilled are then distributed to the property types based on their slice of the pie. Now, so if you are looking at a valuation notice where there's a significant increase in the property value, you can appeal the property's valuation. You cannot appeal the percentage of the increase. Oftentimes I get calls where somebody is referencing how much their value went up, whether it be 20%, 30%, or something more. You cannot appeal that percentage of increase. You need to focus on the end result, what the assessed value is, and whether or not that is accurate. When we are reviewing appeals, the process takes on more of a fee appraisal type approach. If you've ever had an appraisal done for a refinance or a purchase, you've gotten a copy of that appraisal and you might understand how that works. They typically will compare your property to recently sold properties that are very similar. And the appeals season or the appeals process is your opportunity to provide the assessor with any relevant information regarding the valuation or classification of those properties. So if you are thinking that your valuation is not reflective of the market value, the best approach would be to find examples of sales that you feel are similar to your property and provide those to the assessor. Also information like a, problem with the foundation, deferred maintenance, that type of information is also useful in an appeals process. I have seen a lot of properties sell within the last year and a half that do have deferred maintenance. So there may be examples out there where we can compare properties that have deferred maintenance to your property and see if that is truly affecting the market value and to what extent. So the appeals process basically can be started by just reaching out to the assessor. You can call my office, you can send an email, or you can drop by our window and just talk to us. Like I said, bring some information that we can look into. And if we don't come to an agreement, then there's further steps in this appeal process. For Lutsen, Tofte, and Schroeder, there is a local board of appeal and equalization. The date of those meetings should be on your valuation notice towards the bottom. If you are in an unorganized township, we call it an open book meeting. This is essentially the same as reaching out to the county assessor and just initiating that appeals process. Now, if through both of these steps, we still can't come to an agreement and you still feel like the information is not reflective of the market value or classification, you can also appeal to the County Board of Appeals and Equalization. That meeting date and time is also on your valuation notice towards the bottom. In Cook County, we are meeting at the commissioner's room in the courthouse on Thursday, June 23rd at 6 p.m. Now, you can also, if you don't get, the result that you were hoping for from the County Board of Appeals, you can go to tax court. You have until April of the taxes payable year, so 2023, to file a tax court petition. Now, in tax court, you're going to want to be very well prepared. I would recommend getting an appraisal done and knowing before you file that petition going in that you have some good information to support your position on your appeal. So I'm going to jump out of this example or this presentation, and I want to just pull up an example of a process that you can go through in appealing your valuation. I'm visiting the realtor.com website here. I've typed in Cook County, Minnesota, and I've selected the just sold option above the search bar. When I click search, it's going to give me 215 recent sales in Cook County, and I can organize these by the sold date. That is probably the most appropriate setup for looking at the most recent sales. Now, you want to whittle it down to reflect the square footage of your property, the condition of your property, the location of your property. So I am going to select a very recent sale. In fact, this is within the last 2 weeks of preparing this presentation. And you can see this property sold for $270,000 on March 29th of 2022. Now, this example, I want to pull up the assessment record here. In this example, that property actually went up 25%. The value here of 164.4 is the 2021 estimated market value. The increase here to 205,700, which is rounded up, that represents a 25% increase. Most people would say, well, that's pretty significant. 25% in 1 year is atypical in a normal market. However, for this person to appeal a 25% value increase would not be reflective of the recent sale price of $270,000. So in this example, the 25% increase, in my opinion, is not worth an appeal. I do want to just express that you may have 20 to 30%, and in some cases more, valuation increase. If you are asking the assessor's office to do a review, we typically are going to ask to come out and visit the property. In the event we were to find information that we were not aware of, it can affect your property value. It can lower it or it can increase it. If we were to come out to a property and discover our square footage was wrong, or we weren't accounting for a finished basement, in those examples, an appeal could actually result in an increase in market value. Again, we're not appealing, you wouldn't be appealing the percentage of increase, you're appealing the actual assessed value compared to sales of recently sold properties that are similar. Also, you may have recently purchased your property for a price that is lower than what the assessed value is. If you purchased your property in October of 2020, we're applying nearly 20% time trend to that sale price. And that is the number that should be reviewed or compared to our assessed value as of January 2nd, 2022. So, it's definitely worth your while to do a little bit of research and make sure that you're appealing on a basis that the market value is in question and not that the percentage of increase is undesirable. So if you have any more questions, if I haven't answered all of your questions, feel free to give me a call. We certainly will take any information that you're willing to provide us and review that information and see if a property site visit is worthwhile. My phone number here at the Cook County Assessor's Office is 218-387-3650. You can also stop by our window in the courthouse, or you can send an email to the assessor's office, and we would be more than happy to take a second look at your proposed 2022 valuation. Thanks again, and hopefully we have done our due diligence and your property valuation looks correct. Thank you.